It just, okay. I know.
Yes, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Senate Committee on Government Operations meeting of Tuesday, May 19, 2026. We're going to take up H 686 now, which is an act related to expanding identification of certain lobbying advertisements. There has, to my knowledge, not been any change to this bill since we looked at it last, which was last week. But we did get another witness to welcome in today. So Matt, you could definitely, if you want to take your coat off, by the way, feel free. You don't have to ask permission.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
Permission on the Senate floor.
Only if you
No.
poison ivy.
So what-
I'm working 1.1. Is that what you guys are working?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the privilege. Thank you.
So Matt Musgrave is going to join us. He is the regional director for Vermont of the Associated Builders and Contractors of both New Hampshire and Vermont. And he has had at least the benefit of being able to look at this over the past couple of days and interested to see what his thoughts are.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the invitation as
Sure.
well as the opportunity to relieve myself of blazer. Pretty hot here, and I'll work on the institutions committee about getting one of my contractors in here to fix their air.
There is a missing part on the, I checked with Sid, and there's a missing part with the air conditioner.
Every year they come up
Yeah.
with something like that.
I know, just, we have to be patient. It's an old building. But it's a new system in the HVAC.
I think you just put it in.
What can I, that's what I heard.
Okay.
Oh, great. For the record, Matt Musgrave, and I think it may be the building telling you to get out of here and enjoy your summer. So I've had the opportunity to take a look at H 686, and I actually wanted to thank the committee for making some changes to the bill. When it passed out of the House, I wasn't particularly excited about it, just the way that it was written. It would kind of worry me that speaking my tomato plants might have to be a report. So I actually really appreciate the changes that you made here. That was in jest. I don't talk to my family.
You did, as long as you're not paying to talk to
you. Well, and I think that was the distinction that I enjoyed, and that you tied this amendment that was written to, I think, what the original intent of this law was, is some clarification so that you understand what's going on, what's being said, how that's being done. I just had a couple of quick small changes, but otherwise I would compliment you on the bill. And the changes that I'm suggesting are in opposition to what you're trying to accomplish. It's just a clarification to,
Okay.
so that I understand how to play by the rules. Because one of the things that we talk about is the distinction of lobbyist and association executive and educator. So we do a couple of those different things. So as you know, there's a lobbying statute covers anyone that's going to be persuading either elected officials, government, or trying to get others to do so. So technically I'm a lobbyist. However, I'm not what you would consider to be a contract lobbyist. So I don't have multiple different customers. I'm an association executive. So my job is to work with the association. I do things like newsletters with safety information and educational resources. Sometimes I talk about laws and rules and those, but I wouldn't consider that to be lobbying. So that's why I wanted to talk today about how to maybe clarify this to understand where that works. One of the other things I do as an association executive is I work in elections as well. So that means we operate a political action committee both in New Hampshire, and we'll be starting one here in Vermont. So there is some distinction in the work that I do and different hats that I'm wearing. So I just want to make sure that I know which hat that I'm wearing and where to report to, so that I'm following the rules, because that's what we do. So the couple of small changes that I saw in here that were relevant, and I don't have my glasses with me. I've been in the building long enough that I didn't need glasses before.
Sure.
So I remember that. I should be able to do it. Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Glasses are out.
The first change that I saw here was in section 2 under 264C in A1. There was a change to removing prior to final adjournment of a biennial or adjourned legislative session. And I just wanted to bring that up as a change that I would oppose and suggest leaving that as is. And the reason why I suggest that is because when you look at the original intent of the law, the way that this was written, it was very clear that the authors were suggesting that this had to do with lobbying during the session. And this could be confused later on with electioneering work that we would do through our political action committee, which So for example, if I was to take out an ad for $1,000 to support a candidate, I would potentially have to report under two different locations, one both within the Secretary of State's office. So one would be I'd have to report under my campaign finance spending, that I was spending that money taking that out, specifically all the same information. And then at the other side, I'd also have to record it as a lobbyist. So I just wanted to, I think that might be a clarification that's a little bit different, and that the original authors were thinking lobbying happens during the session, electioneering is a little bit different. So that's one suggestion that I would make to the bill.
Is that sort of part of
That is
bill?
the entire.
That's the entire bill. I mean, that's the
That we
purpose of it, is to
eliminate
make it
disagree.
all year long.
You can agree with me on that.
No, we don't have to agree, but I'm just, that is the reason for the bill, which is to make it apply all year long.
Okay, so
To
would
should
the
make it
answer to
simple.
that, would the answer to that for someone like me be that at the end of the session, I would get rid of my lobbyist registration and be in electioneering? Because
No,
that,
I think
that's
you have to have
You
Tim.
you
Tim.
can't block.
Okay.
I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to.
I think it would be a question for the Secretary of State, but if you're. If you are sending out something on behalf of a candidate, this would not apply.
Yeah.
This says that it is designed or calculated to influence legislative action or solicit others to influence legislative action.
So what if I said to my members that, are you interested in housing development? That's something that's related to a law that exists. And to support certain candidates that would support that would be electioneering, but it would also be lobbying at the same time, correct?
Well, if you're lobbying, if you're lobbying for a specific bill or measure during the course of the session, but if you're supporting candidates during the course of election season, I don't think.
So if I said that a certain candidate was super supportive of the apprenticeship programs and that we should support that candidate because they helped us pass a law this year with the CTE programs that helped us expand on that. I mean, that is specifically talking about a bill in terms of electioneering. So I just want to make sure that we don't end up getting a fine.
I don't know. Tim, can you answer these questions? Because
Sure. I can talk about the law, election law and campaign finance law versus lobbying law. I don't think it's appropriate for me to weigh in specifically. I don't want to come across as providing legal advice and to people who are not my clients, but I can talk generally about the possible purple in the Venn diagram between the two. If you wanted to take the seat later, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
I would appreciate that. And it's not from a perspective of being argumentative. It's just trying to understand where the lines are drawn and what I need to do in order to stay legal, because that's our intent, is to not cause problems. And I know that this bill isn't directed at me personally. I know that there's a lot of other stuff going on out there that is nothing related to me.
but Matt, I think my understanding was that this was going to actually simplify this and to not have a bifurcated sort of a during session, post session, but not have a bifurcated view of lobbying and have it simpler and have it apply all year long. Is that the
Senator Fields?
If you were, because I know campaign season is upon us,
Yes.
and I know candidates have announced and gotten endorsements. If you were to endorse a candidate right now, would you have to report in both of these sides?
We, as a practice, don't generally endorse.
Yeah.
In my trade association, we have a political action committee that runs separate from the association of voluntary. The fact of the matter is my association involves people of all different parties. So for us to endorse somebody, I don't think would be appropriate. And I also, if I was to endorse somebody, it would not be during this period of time, because I think that would possibly cross an ethical line on my part. Electioneering against one of you in a seat that was to make a difference. I wouldn't have do that. That's not
Yeah,
something
that's a long.
so I wouldn't be able.
Right. But I guess my point is it could happen right now under the current law that someone is electioneering for a candidate while we are in session and could find themselves having to ask the question of which do I report this to?
So I could write a check today to a party. This is correct.
Right.
right?
But I wouldn't be able to get involved with
With
any
a candidate.
Yes.
candidacy. So
Because
We're not talking about money, though. We're talking about advertisements. So maybe not you specifically, but currently, under current law, someone could put out an advertisement in support of a candidate that is announced, we are still in session,
Not
so
a
this
lot,
applies.
probably anybody but a lobbyist.
No, I think they still could. They can't, lobbyists can't give money, but they absolutely could put something out saying, hey, we support this candidate.
Oh, I'll agree with you. Yes.
And we are in session, so the law currently applies. So people are navigating this question of which do I report to already.
Right. But as of adjournment, though, we're no longer lobbying on behalf of a particular bill, then we would be lobbying on behalf of a person. So, or promoting a person, endorsing a person. So I think maybe I would ask for clarification on that, just only because I believe words matter. And this is going to be in the green books. And I just want to make sure again that, and I don't believe the Secretary of State's going to be running around chasing us. However, I do know that this is something that potentially people that are counter to a belief system that we have could potentially walk it back and portray it as lobbyist activity, because it does become somewhat subjective.
Senator Clark,
Do you think we could get, Lynn,
we can do it tomorrow.
check and see if the elections person is available to zoom in now?
Sean Sheehan.
Answer questions.
The language, as it came over from the other body, used the word communication. And that created some angst on the part of some people who provide newsletters, emails. Would they be included in this?
Yeah.
And so Senator Vyhovsky, to her credit, took that under advisement and said, okay, we'll strike everything out that is not a paid ad.
Gotcha.
So this is strictly a paid ad, but your question about whether it's strictly about a bill or a candidate, I don't know that there's clarity in this yet.
And that's
But
why I
this is
thought it would be
current
really,
law.
it would be helpful to have Sean weigh in, I think.
But it is current law, but I'll just ask folks to look at page 3 of the bill. And the last, I get the part about, okay, from line 16 through 19, any enacted or introduced bill or any issue featured in the advertisement of campaign. But then the second one is any specific person featured in the ad or advertising campaign. So to Matt's question, if we're out of session, there's no bill anymore.
Right.
It's either been enacted or it didn't work. But there are candidates, and that's a person. So if there's a paid ad indicating support for a person, to me, that falls within this bill. Am I not?
Already, yes. But
No, this
No,
is
this is new language. This
Is that the-
was around the description.
Bottom
Because if
page
you
three.
recall, what we heard is the description.
16%.
Many of the descriptions were things like advertisement. It's like, well, yeah, I was trying to drill down, and this was language I worked on council with to try to be as constitutionally sound.
And number 3's Romanette, is that how you say?
Romanette.
Romanette 3, on the very back page, whether the intent content of the advertisement or advertising campaign offers an opinion of support, opposition, or neutrality, when we talk about neutrality.
Bill issue 4.
On a bill issue or person, yeah.
So I think we may need to refine this a little bit more, or maybe not, right? Just, yeah, Senator.
Yeah, well, I would just say, I appreciate the work that you do. And I do actually think that it should all be reported if it's going to be pushing one agenda or the other. Because I think what I'm hoping for with this change is this kind of like pseudo time period based requirement that doesn't actually reflect what is influencing people. Because the length of our session, I mean, this year is a great example of it. It's going to go almost right up to the primary, it seems like. So the parameters are variable, but the influence is the same, regardless of the time. So while I do think it will make you have to do more things or potentially have to face kind of a decision
Only
point.
if I spend 1,000.
Only if you said exactly.
That's true.
Exactly. And it's not saying you can't do it. It's providing more information.
Oh.
And if anything, I think it will provide clarity for voters who go, okay, wait, what the heck was that all about? Now I can look at it and understand. So I'm fully supportive of that as drafted version, but I do think you're right. It is going to add more requirements for lobbyists. I also think to be a lobbyist or to be someone in this role is inherently kind of already unfair in our existing structure because my individual constituents aren't paying someone to come up here and lobby. your members are. There's an advantage. There's a persuasion to having someone consistently drum beating on a certain topic that the average person can't afford to employ.
Right.
So I think it's really important when we're in positions of power to have as much transparency as possible about those financial exchanges, because it's just such it's not an equal fight. So it's information. And I would ban lobbying as a practice, straight up. If I no,
I would join you.
We get more accomplished.
I would join you.
We'd get maybe better things done. That is-
Yeah, and then maybe we pitch it to having staff instead or something. But I think this is the least we can do to clarify the strange timing that this bill, the original law, has in it. But yes, it will require more, and I respect your
But it
position.
will provide more transparency.
No, and I get the purpose and intent of this. I'm actively watching a lot of the same stuff that you're seeing out there in the ether with.
Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah,
But I do understand where you're coming.
The threshold is still $1,000. So
Yes,
if I have an email where I support Senator Morley for reelection, I'm not paying for an email necessarily, or a Facebook ad.
you
You have
might,
to pay for,
you do have to pay for
Yes, you
it. Yeah,
do.
usually like.
for not $1,000.
Yeah, you're not hitting that. Yeah.
Which I actually think is part of the problem, which is why I tried to lower that threshold to 0.
I just want to make sure that we're fully understanding what we're suggesting here. If there's any opinion being offered, but it's free, this doesn't capture it, correct? In other words,
I would say so.
an email or a newsletter that says, boy, that Senator White, she's really on board and you gotta vote for her next
Yeah.
time.
Letters to
But
the
nobody
editor,
pays anything.
letters to the editor do not count. Those are free and public.
And that's because of a lot of these questions is why we took out the new definition of what is an advertisement to deal with when we have more time. This is really just clarifying what is a description. And this applies all the time because there's, we're talking about campaign season, but there's also the off session between bienniums that currently are not captured in the
Correct.
law.
right. It's true.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be electioneering then because
Exactly.
everybody's already
Theoretically, you
paid.
get called back in during that time too.
Yeah,
And you're gonna come back the next year and still be working on stuff. So
Well, and we also are all in task forces in the summer and fall, and that can influence opinion too.
So maybe my
That's
solution is
active
it becomes a
work
lot
that
of
we're doing.
activity and not electioneering.
I mean, that's a consideration.
Okay, well, no, I think I love clarification, but I don't want to slow down the process terribly. I know that you have a lot more. I heard you talking about the yield bill a minute ago, so I understand that there's priorities going on in the building, but that's something that just to take into consideration as you take a vote.
was that the only thing that?
No, just two other small
Oh.
ones. I did hear Senator Bohofsky mention that she wanted to reduce from 1,000 to 0, so I'm fairly certain my next comment is not going to be supported, but I was going to suggest possibly modernizing the cost there because $1,000 today isn't really a lot of marketing. I would potentially suggest $5,000 to $10,000 because that's where you're talking about a real marketing. For $1,000, you're maybe going to reach several hundred people, as opposed to and that's my membership, right?
But that could be all of the town of Canton, which we just did.
well,
That's
it's
a good
also
point.
with social media, that is just not true. I can reach tens of thousands of people with $50 on a Facebook ad.
Yep.
So I think that actually I think you're,
I'm just going to stop.
you can get.
In every other phase, I've got this down from 1,500, and I just haven't gotten to this one yet.
I'm going to stop there. One other one, I think we can hopefully agree on this one is
Okay.
in section 3 of section 3,
The effective.
2C, Roman numeral 3.
Ah.
On the back, you have an opinion of support, opposition, or neutrality.
Yep.
My thought would be on neutrality. That gets complicated for me because you pass a law today and it's on, let's say it's an employer mandate for getting a break in X amount of time, whatever that may be. It's beholden on me to notify my entire membership through that. And I might take out a periodical, or I might take out some larger ad in order to inform them of the specific facts of the law without giving an opinion so that they can comply with the law. That's where I would suggest just removing neutrality, because by it being neutral, it actually goes against essentially what the definition of lobbying would be, which would be to try to motivate someone to your opinion. So if I could have one change, that might.
We had
be a
some
very
discussion
good
about
thing.
that. I brought it up, why anybody would spend money
Yeah.
to say, I really want a position. Yeah,
I think my concern with that is, and I know you would not do this, but there are plenty of organizations that put out the facts of a bill that are in fact not the facts of the bill.
Mhm.
And I think it is important to know, is this a trustworthy source who paid for this? And it's, again, I don't expect you would do that to your membership because you want them to comply with the law. And I've certainly experienced in my 6 years in the building when the facts of something have been put out that are absolutely not facts of something.
Right.
So they might put like, XYZ lobbyist neutral. But then when I go look and I'm like, oh, well, I know XYZ lobbyist has a pattern of misrepresenting the facts.
Right. Well, I think when I look at this again, I go back to information that's necessary to get out to people regarding safety, regarding past laws. And it's just, this is my opinion. It's not lobbying. And I understand that there are people that are doing that, but if somebody was intentionally misleading someone and you were able to prove that by fact, then you'd be able to point to opposition or support and say, that person's lying. What they're actually doing is supporting X, Y, and Z.
But we don't know who they are. They didn't have to report that they did it.
Well, you'd be able to see the ad because you said that you saw those things that people online that you could identify that. But like me reporting out to somebody that, like, here's a good example. We're having a heat safety training that's going to go on, and I'm going to spend well over $1,000 on materials so that people that they can walk away with materials to understand and be able to protect that heat standards so that they don't violate OSHA's 5A general duty clause and end up with a $120,000 fine. So that's not lobbying, that's education.
But I don't know that would be considered lobbying. So if you look at the definition of lobbying.
Yeah.
An advertisement that is intended, designed, or calculated to influence legislative action or solicit others to influence legislative action. That doesn't count. What you're looking at now is this is a totally different section of the bill. It's not changing the definition of lobbying. It's saying that if you've met this threshold and you have to report, you need to report these things.
So again, that same comment that I made about whether that becomes lobbying is if all of a sudden you identify that I've said something and it's not true, like someone could go, let's say it was a competing organization or somebody that didn't like my member organization and they saw me put out the information on how to deal with the general 5A duty clause regarding a heat safety. How is that going to back up if someone doesn't like me? It's not likely going to be one of you in the room that reports it. It could be someone that doesn't like me and they could go make an allegation that I'm lobbying and go back, and depending on who is actually arbitrating this, they could make that decision whether or not I was lobbying based on the information that they got from somebody else.
But that doesn't change the definition of lobbying.
No, I understand.
So you would still, we are not changing the definition of lobbying. That is not changing under current law. That is simply an explainer of if you are lobbying and you have to report, these are the things we need you to tell us.
Gotcha.
And so it's not changing the definition of lobbying. So if that behavior currently isn't lobbying, it still won't be.
Okay, I'm just asking these questions now before we pass the bill, not trying to be
Nothing
argumentative.
to change the definitions of either lobbying or educating or
advertising.
advertising.
Yeah,
We
okay,
tried,
I just
but we
want to
pulled
make
all of
sure that that's not the case. That was what I was sent up with by my group. Those are the questions that I had.
yeah.
And I really respect the time that you've given me to come in and ask
Yeah.
those questions and consider them and talk through them. And I'll rest with a reasonable assurance that the Secretary of State won't come after me.
I don't think the Secretary of State's gonna.
Was that 0 for 3?
That was 0 for 3. So it's fine. I really appreciate the opportunity and to spend a little bit of time in the committee. And Mr. Chair, if I may, after you have your ledge council and take your vote, if I could have 30 seconds in the chair.
Sure,
After I get
Absolutely.
done
Yep.
on a separate topic.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I don't know whether the other members of the committee would be open to this. But it's just a suggestion. First, we should probably have Sean Sheehan come in.
Yes.
Who's that?
The Secretary of State.
The head of
Elections
elections.
Division. And then the other one, instead of neutrality, could we have Tim draft something which says this does not include educational information provided to members of a particular group
Or
as to how to come into compliance with a particular
state or federal law.
I mean, I'm happy to have Tim draft that because I think the bill already accounts for that. It already doesn't include those things.
But I sympathize with that neutrality, that I don't. If you could draft something, strike the neutrality,
I don't want to strike the neutrality language for exactly what I was talking
but
about.
then add a clause that says this shall not include efforts to educate members of a.
Or neutrality does not mean. is that what
Either
you're trying to
way,
say?
fine.
How would you suggest?
Yeah, I'm fine with the addition of that language,
Oh,
given, like I
okay.
said, I think the bill already says that.
Sean Sheehan is gonna join us. So,
That he could do
I
that.
think these are, so there's three questions that I have about a specific person, whether that includes. I understand what
Election.
lobbying is and I understand what a paid ad is. But if I send an email out or a newsletter or even a Facebook ad that says that Senator White is spot on. And boy, you ought to really follow her progress.
She says.
Does that
Paid for by
get
Dylan.
captured? Yeah. Does that get captured in this? And then a phrase about the neutrality not meaning taking an official position on something that's strictly being informative, educative, however you want to phrase that.
Okay.
Those are the, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I would like to hear from council about sort of the purple area of the Venn
Yeah.
diagram where this may overlap.
Yep,
And Sean, I think Sean's joining us.
it will, but we could have Tim come up first.
Yeah, great.
So, for the record, Tim Devlin, legislative counsel. So I think it's good to start from the idea of, comparing campaign finance and election, law to, lobbying law. They're sisters or cousins. They're related, but they're not exactly the same thing. And the conduct which they could capture, and up until now, they're on different kind of time cycles, and it's pretty unlikely. With this change of having the lobbying advertisements be all year round versus just in session, I guess, yeah, it's worth considering what kind of conduct could be, captured by both. So let's look at the definitions of both first. So we have lobbying, which we were just discussing. And to recap here, so lobbying means to communicate, currently it says orally or in writing with any legislator or administrative official. Here's the key language: for the purpose of influencing legislative or administrative action. So has to be influence is the key word, and then talking about legislative or administrative action. I don't know if, well, I should say, this legislative or administrative action doesn't have to be current. I think it's also forward-looking, something that could be coming down the line, although it's not explicit as to that. So there's some room for interpretation there, which could be either sussed out by the courts or left to the enforcing entity to take that into consideration when they may be exercising their kind of pseudo prosecutorial discretion here. And just a note, Secretary of State receives information on this, however, is the AG who would be investigating and enforcing any violations of lobbying law. So just kind of putting a pin in this idea of influence of legislative or administrative action. I should just say the rest of the lobbying things are kind of different varieties of that too. So trying to marshal goodwill for the influence of that outcome, or have solicitations of others to do kind of the same thing on your behalf, et cetera, et cetera. So now let's turn to the definitions of what is an electioneering communication for campaign finance law. So this is going to be under Title 17, Section 2901 definitions. So electioneering means any communication that refers to a clearly identified candidate for office and that promotes or supports a candidate for that office, or attacks or opposes the candidate for that office, regardless of whether the communication expressly advocates to vote for or against the candidate. This will also include communications published in newspapers, periodicals, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, it just has a long list of various modes of communication. So for lobbying, we have the purpose is anything that is trying to influence legislative or administrative action. Here is more candidate focused and also hinges on, are you supporting or, opposing essentially that candidacy? So where can the same communication come into play in both? Is a question. So we would have something like, okay, influencing legislative action would be, just kind of thinking out loud here, while advocating for a person of saying, vote no for candidate A because they will be considering this big hot topic issue coming up. And we think, that should be voted for or against. That's the influence part, but you're mentioning the candidate part. So therefore, it could be both, possibly. And so if it does fall into both, depending on the other requirements and thresholds here, you would either have to, kind of the regular campaign finance things we kind of should have the thresholds of $500, I think is what we have for registering tax and things like that. And then on the other hand, we'd have the thresholds for who has to register as a lobbyist, which I think is also $500 and has to be done within a certain time period. So depending on the specifics of the communication, it's possible that you could fall into both because you'd be, at the same time making an electioneering communication and trying to influence legislative or administrative actions. But I will say that the idea of influencing legislative action, administrative action for somebody who isn't in office may be also kind of a stretch because we're talking about candidates versus office holders. So there's nuance here, and I can't say definitively exactly how it would necessarily shake out, because influencing legislative or administrative action is purposefully, I think, broad in scope as to capture a wide variety of nature of lobbying efforts. So those are my kind of opening thoughts on it off the cuff.
So I didn't hear you mention any expenditure when you talked about electioneering.
Sure. So expenditures in electioneering, so those have to be there's thresholds for when you would have to register as a PAC, and you would have to report subsequent, according to the regular schedule put up by the Secretary of State. In statute here to be reported to the Secretary of State. The threshold, so if you were spending $500, I'm just going to put a pin in the elections bill that's going through changing that annual law, as we kind of discussed before, 298. So it's the same threshold. So if you're expending up to that, it's not, just call it anything below 500, de minimis area. It's the same thresholds for both, pretty much, when you have to register as a lobbyist or as a PAC, and then the kind of there'd be some detail about exactly how that money was spent that'd be required to be reported in according to each track as a lobbyist or as a PAC. But I'm not sure if I'm answering your
I'm just trying to see whether this bill expands the requirements for electioneering. I understand that it does for lobbying, but as Matt pointed out, he's not a lobbyist.
Right. If you're electioneering, it won't really affect electioneering. But it doesn't affect it at all, I can say.
Okay.
If you're creating some sort of electioneering communication, you'll have to abide by the statutes as written or as modified in another bill. But
I was hoping.
It happens still, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, does anyone else have an ability to phrase that question a little more expertly? I'm trying not to bring too much into it, but I want to make sure we've excluded what I don't want to have. In other words, if somebody is writing a newsletter, I suppose they can do whatever they want in that, in terms of expressing opinions for or against a particular candidate or a bill, as long as they're not paying $1,000.
Yeah. We're
Um,
paying like a contractor to publicize their newsletter for $1,000+.
Yes. I think the five of us all agree that at least I'll speak for myself. I don't have a problem with whether it's VPIRG or the Associated Contractors of Vermont spending $1,000 to go in favor of a bill or legislative, what you say, legislative or administrative action. That should be reported. I don't have any problem with that. That should be obvious to anybody. If the newspaper ad or the radio already makes you say we paid for it. Same with television, if I'm not mistaken.
But you do have the problem with the educational materials that are for
I don't think we can.
specific purpose.
Tim, is my
Is that your
read
problem?
on this that
Yeah.
because educational materials are not trying to influence legislative action, that they would not be captured in this at all?
I would probably agree with that characterization.
But there's one kind of educational material that's educating, AKA the sharing an opinion about what that group supports, as opposed to educating about.
This
laws
is
that
the
just
law,
passed.
this is how you come in compliance with that. That would never be
That-
captured by this. It's not trying to influence
Right.
anything.
Exactly, it's just trying to inform,
If we're talking about education.
but education that's biased is not right.
Well, yeah,
So why do we include the word person in the bill?
Because a person is also an entity, a company, right? I mean, it's a corporation.
The
And it
reporting of,
includes people and businesses.
so returning to what has to be, including that brief.
So here comes Sean to solve all our problems.
So that would be, let's see, so we'd have any enacted or introduced bill, or any issue, featured in the advertisement, any specific person featured in the advertisement. As well, so that could be a candidate, it could be a sitting legislator, it could be, you know, a national figure, it could be a celebrity.
and again, it doesn't say you can't do it and it doesn't trigger you becoming a lobbyist. It just, if you did do it, it has to be reported.
Right, that's all we're doing.
If you're spending $1,000, which would be the reason you have to report it, you'd be already surpassing that $500 threshold, so you already have to, you'd be lobbying at that point. You're right.
Right, but I guess the concern was sort of that this somehow changed the definition of lobbying, and what I'm really trying to make clear is the definition of lobbying does not change. This is just the clarification of the information that should be in the report, should the lobbying definition have triggered that you need to report.
Yes, that's correct.
Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So when you first sat up here, it got a little funny for me because you spoke about lobbying and then electioneering. Give me a, can you give me a random example of where they can cross?
How they're crossing, how they're different, and Sean's here too, so maybe Sean.
So, electioneering, pure electioneering thing would be, you know, Senator X is gonna raise your taxes, vote no on Senator X.
Look at me,
Lobbying,
I've had a consistent record.
pure lobbying would be, you know, Bill A is gonna raise your taxes, vote no on, you know, write your legislator to vote, have them vote no on Bill A. Now, where you could possibly cross them and kind of gets again into the possible nuance in the definition of influencing
Yeah.
legislative or administrative action, and can a candidate, you know, because again, electioneering is only about candidates. Would that legislative action try to influence, would that apply to candidates because they're not in office or not? But it'd be, you know, candidate A is gonna vote for S, you know, whatever when it comes, or
There
they're
won't
gonna
be-
create a bill to do it, you know, vote against them because it equals, you know, taxes.
So that's what I'm wondering, Tim, if we can straighten out. Or maybe you need to add more definitions to what legislative influencing is and administrative actions are, I don't know, because that's where it seems like it's getting a little bit confusing to me.
I like even in Tim's definition, it feels like there actually isn't really much overlap in the Venn diagram, and it all comes down to can you influence a candidate to act on theoretical legislation?
And the answer is yes.
Well, but the candidate could lose, so
Yes.
you're not influencing a
You're trying to influence the
legislator.
voter.
You're like
You're trying to influence the vote.
right, but it's not lobbying; it's electioneering. I
That
don't
isn't.
actually see where they cross because of this sort of. They're candidates.
But you could be
And
lobbying
there
for a
is-
measure. You could be lobbying for an issue or a measure, which is lobbying. It could,
Yes.
it might not be a candidate. It could be lobbying for the whole Women's Solutions Act, for example. You could be lobbying for that as a whole and support and not a particular candidate, but supporting that issue and having people then.
I
support
just still like,
candidates.
I don't see where, like, but, okay, so it's candidates that support previous enacted legislation, that's like, okay, they supported it. Like, you're not trying to influence the legislation, you're like, these people are great, they supported this legislation. Like, you're not trying to influence any, like, legislation in action, like, I just don't see where the Venn diagram crosses.
Right, because you're either lobbying for a bill that's actively in play or you're
Electioneering for a
Electioneering for a
candidate,
candidate.
and then they're not in their official office doing anything legislative.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think two things that come to mind that would completely alleviate any concern that I had. And then I think to your point, I believe that you're right. And I would love to see that education piece that you had suggested as a line 4 under that, just clarifying that would make me sleep well at night. And then on the other side, to clear up any concern over electioneering or lobbying during the campaign session, could you add a section in there that says, if this is being reported under a campaign finance report, it doesn't fall under a lobbying report, or you can put it under your lobbying report and vice versa. I wouldn't report it twice. I'll report it once and it all goes to your office either way. And that information is easily, readily findable by the public. And there's no Matt made a mistake or someone doesn't like Matt, and then I have to go to court to argue the point that we're having here. You would just be very clarifying it so that there is no question when you're interpreting it later.
I don't have a problem doing that. Can you fashion some language that doesn't force somebody to, in essence, report it twice?
But does that language then allow someone to pick and choose where they report it and what they have to report?
You can have it, you can draft it in a way where, you can say, if, so either you have to make the campaign finance disclosure, right? So if disclosed here under campaign finance law, chapter blah, 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 then you do not have to also file this. That would require that it be filed there, but they could file it both if wanted, but but you would then, the way you phrase it, you could have it locked into campaign finance.
Okay,
If wanted.
That makes me feel.
yeah, I don't think it's gonna ultimately change
It
anything.
may not.
So I think what I didn't want to have happen though is have people get to say, well, which of these is more favorable for me? I'm gonna file it there.
Right.
So those two changes, I guess, Tim. Okay.
So we,
Senator Clay.
well, we just, we have Sean in the room who kindly came over.
Yes,
And it would be helpful, I think, for Sean to clarify some of the concerns that were raised really.
okay. Senator Yovsky, do you have something else from Tim?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're sort of adding in this piece that it doesn't include education, which I don't really, as long as it's crafted to mean the type of education we're talking about and not some of the other stuff.
Exactly, as long as
But
it's not
now we're
biased.
changing the definition of lobbying. And I thought we had all sort of agreed that we were not going to change the definition of lobbying
No.
at this point.
I don't think we should.
I don't think we are.
No, we are. If we're adding in a piece that says lobbying doesn't mean this type of
No,
thing.
neutrality doesn't mean coming into compliance with an already existing law and just informing.
I thought that was education, that an educational piece that is educating people about how the new law impacts them.
But that's not lobbying, so we'll never
That's
trigger
not-
the report. We don't, that's why I'm saying we don't need that language. We are either changing the definition of lobbying or we don't need the language because that would already not need the report.
Yeah, but that was new language in Romanet 3.
But it's not about lobbying, it's about the report.
That's true.
Right.
She's right. I think.
She is.
Often, I guess. Yeah, that's agree.
Yeah, but it's under the section of lobbying advertisements.
No.
It's inside that section.
Right, so the way that section
It's a
little
B
B
one.
happens is if I am a lobbyist and I have done advertisement and I have to report, these are just the things I have to include.
Right.
It doesn't change what triggers me being a lobbyist or what triggers me being required to make a report. It's just if 1 and 2 are true, my report should include this
The
information.
report has to include.
So it doesn't trigger this education piece because that already would not trigger 1. It might trigger 2, but it doesn't trigger 1. And it has to be both. You have to both be a lobbyist and pay for the advertisement that is lobbying. So because the definition of lobbying already excludes those types of communications, it would never be triggered and this report wouldn't apply.
So if you had a compliance campaign, that's informational and to your members, the question would be, is it trying to influence legislative action or administrative action? No. So then it wouldn't be considered lobbying effort. And then, no matter how much you spent on it, you want to have to report it because it wouldn't be lobbying.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You still sleeping well?
So I'm feeling better. So just to be clear, if I spent $1,000 and I took a copy of legislation that you have going through and I spend $1,000 mailing that out, is that education or is that lobbying?
Are you a lobbyist when you're sending it, or is it your contractor
It's
organization
lobbying
members?
if you're doing it to influence the outcome of how a bill is enacted or not.
So if I use the section of law to say you should comply with this section of law that passed this year, and I say that in August, I spend $1,000, that's technically lobbying?
Well,
No,
that's
No, that's already
educating people about
enacted.
law that
Okay.
passed.
And you're not, it's.
What if I'm
Or
misinforming
compliance.
people intentionally?
Well, then, yeah.
Well,
You're educating
not
people
that I
about.
would have.
I mean,
I'm just using that.
You're educating
Deep
people
into the
about how to
weeds of
comply
like, what if a butterfly flew into, like, I think we could sit here for 6 years coming up with every what if.
Well, we may.
Oh, please.
The education office happens, sure.
Please no.
I guess
Okay.
I would just say, I think for a lot of organizations who have like an educational component and a public policy component and a lobbyist component,
Yes.
they tend to be pretty firewalled, or at least that's been my personal
Yeah.
experience, where it's like, I can't talk to this person about my election. And I can only talk to this person about the policy.
Mhm.
And the person who sends the policy email or sends out the newsletter via paper is not the same person who I'm talking to about elections. So if they are the same people, then yes, I think if you're spending $1,000 sending it out, heck yeah, people should know about that. But if you're doing the nonprofit angle of whatever it is, then yeah, that's different.
I mean, I think the question I would have is if you sent a copy of legislation in between year 1 and year 2 of, oh no, tomorrow,
Yeah.
and said you need to comply with this was passed on passage a month and a half ago, would you have to report that as lobbying?
Yeah, versus if you
Because
did
if
it
you wouldn't have to report it now, you wouldn't have to report it.
exactly.
Tanya, I think you do have to do a lot of these what ifs. I'm sorry.
But we could do it all day long.
No, I know,
Like,
but
I think when we start
I'm-
to get into these nitty gritty, what if I did X, Y, and Z? Okay, well, what if I did, there's always going to probably be a situation, but we're so deep into the weeds. Is it going to apply to more than one person one time? Probably not.
So can these people, Matt or any other entity, just call up Secretary of State's office and say, I need guidance on this?
I can't answer that. We've got Sean in
I
there
know.
to answer
I'm
that.
just thinking that would solve.
Yeah.
You could always call.
I mean, I-
FAQs,
Do make the. do that.
because there's a long,
But he's
it's only a 4-page bill, and it seems like there's a lot going on here in my
Tell me
mind.
to answer that.
Yeah, I think that, well, we can certainly develop FAQs. We
Just
can
introduce
point to, oh, sorry, Sean Sheehan, Elections Director, Secretary of State's Office. We certainly develop FAQs. We have the guide to lobbying, and guide to campaign finance. We can put pieces in here. There's a level we get to, we try to keep FAQs at a broad enough level. We get tons of very specific questions, kind of looking, and we don't give the legal guidance, get them all the time on campaign finance. The law says I'm supposed to report every dollar if I have a yard sale and get this money. So, we don't get into that, but certainly high level, we can give guidance and give FAQs. And I think joining the party a little bit late as it came in from where I heard, I would just say certainly to the point, we don't like choose your own adventure either. If we would like to, was stated here and say, definitely report campaign finance. These would be the circumstances, or if you haven't already reported in campaign finance, something like that to ensure that everybody's reporting, but there's also a consistency, not choosing. We like that, and we would make sure that was clear throughout the FAQs as well. We've thought about this language of how it would be implemented in the report right now. Advertising reports have a description field to describe the activity. We would bring in the specific directions of what to make sure the description includes each of, if it's this one, three items to be sure to hit, and so forth. So I think those are the pieces we've thought about, and certainly we would gear our education, our training of lobbyists, any of the communication we do around providing examples of how we felt about what to put in the description field.
So you heard what Matt testified in terms of he's kind of got more than one hat. And as long as the FAQs can answer on what hat he has to report, I think we were comfortable.
So it's lobbying and electioneering
And educate.
and educating.
Yeah.
He's
So
wearing three
how
hats.
those all,
Yeah, I thought legislative council would give a good example of that, a hypothetical where they could intersect, right? It seems fairly unlikely. I think most
Okay.
advertising that's going there, even if it's saying vote against this candidate or vote for that candidate, that would clearly be electioneering. It's more likely they'd say vote for this candidate because they're going to lower your taxes. Vote against them, they're going to raise your taxes and so forth. That's not lobbying, because that's not a specific piece of legislation. But I think you could make it extra clear that because you're reporting the electioneering, you're reporting those in your campaign finance reports first, that if you've already covered it,
You don't have
you don't have to report it in a second place. So I think that could be explicit enough in the law, and we could certainly reinforce that in our education of both our campaign finance guide and our lobbying guide.
Okay.
great.
Yeah, exactly.
So Tim, I guess your charge is still to come back with some language. Sure. I'll let the education neutrality thing go, I guess. I don't like that word because it doesn't express an opinion. It's an opinion of neutrality.
Well, an organization is neutral.
Then why pay money to do that?
They may not.
I think only a fool would do that, but hey.
There are lots of fools in this world, I have learned.
But the other one about the redundancy of reporting, I think, is crucial.
So what we've agreed to is if it has been filed
Either way.
in the no, I think what we agreed to is if it's been filed as a campaign finance report of
So
election
they don't have
hearing,
to allow-
and there's a question of whether or not it might also be lobbying, they don't have to also do the lobbying. You're not letting them choose their own adventure.
I
I
think that's,
like that.
and that's falling asleep with it.
Yeah, that's one for three. I'll take it.
But it's transparently somewhere, so it's one or the
Yeah,
other.
it's there.
It's up on Secretary of State website.
So,
Again, I don't think it's actually gonna happen that it would be both, but I'm fine with that.
Next year we can see.
and you can either fashion that today or tomorrow. We can move this tomorrow just as easily as today. Depending on what else you have in your plate.
I may not have enough time to do it today.
Okay, that's fine.
Certainly, but
And who knows, somebody else may say, hey, wait a minute, I want to testify.
That's why I want to put it out now. I thought we had it all squared away back.
I do
No,
too.
we
So
gotta
you know what? These are concerns that nobody else has mentioned, so I think it's important we answer.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm impressed, Matt. So
Aren't you for all boards?
I just want to make sure I'm following the rules.
Yeah,
yeah, no, I think everybody does.
okay. Then I think we're done with 686 at least for today. unless you had something else, Sean, I didn't mean to walk you all the way over.
No,
here.
What else do you have for us, Sean?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, how's that, all that ethics commission work? Joint
Maybe
work
we,
going?
maybe we pop on
That
that.
still is not here right now.
I know, Apple.
Anything else for the committee today? Well, Rebecca, I hope you, yep. Did you want that while we're live or
You can
just
clear, this is informal.
informal? Okay. Please have a safe trip
Thank you.
and an exciting, visit to, our.
I think they're really
50th
gonna get married.
Well, that's.
I hope they
kinda
both
like
say I
the-
do.
the important- Yeah,
No, I always, they've been together for 8 years, so
Okay.
if it doesn't,
I guess they kind of decided.
yeah.
All right, with that in mind, we will
Yeah.
adjourn for the day and see all of